And by the way, I've had multiple conversations with Ahmadinejad. We've done multiple Zooms with him. He reached out. I was supposed to fly to a country in Europe to interview with him. And that was a day after the assassination attempt they had on him. I don't know if you remember that when that story came out publicly. He said something. He made a couple other claims. Rob, if you want to play a couple of claims and what he said, and you remember this one here. This is him. What's the date on this, Rob, when this speech was given?
I'm not sure the date. I believe this is at the United Nations because the delegates
You're
from the
familiar
United
with the
States
speech? Go ahead and play this clip, Rob.
Identifying those responsible behind the September 11 attacks, there were three viewpoints. First, that a very powerful and complex terrorist group able to successfully cross all layers of the American intelligence and security carried out the attack. This is the prevalent viewpoint, which has been supported mainly and advocated by American statesmen. Second, that some segments within the U.S. government orchestrated the attack to reverse the declining American economy and its grips on the Middle East in order to save the Zionist regime. The majority of the American people, as well as most nations and politicians around the world, agree with this view. Third, it was carried out by a terrorist group, but that the American government supported and took advantage of the situation. Apparently, this viewpoint has fewer proponents. The main evidence for this viewpoint links the incident with a few passports found in the huge volume of rubble and a video of an individual whose place of domicile was unknown, but it was announced that he had been involved in oil deals with some American officials. It was also covered up and said that due to the explosion and fire, no trace of suicide attackers was found.
You can pause that, Rob. Thoughts on that, Tony?
Well, I'd never seen this before, but it seems like I came up with a couple of the options.
You've never seen this before?
I've never seen this before, no. And it seems like some of the things I mentioned to you track with what he's saying. I've never seen this. I had no idea this existed.
Curt, had you seen that before?
No.
What do you think about what he's saying?
I'd have to analyze it some more. I have some thoughts, but again, I try to be very careful because what they'll do is they'll pick apart what I say, and what I try to do, either I have backed up with my files. I have the largest archives in House history, or my oral history, which is 100 hours of videos done by the past president of the National Association of Oral Historians, or by firsthand evidence. And I don't know. My contention is just that Iran should not be an enemy right now. The people of Iran have never been. They were good friends of ours under the Shah, and they're good people. And we should not allow ourselves to be sucked into another war.
It's a very different country, though, Curt.
I know that, but it's been
very different country. Before Iran, there's only two countries in the history of mankind that have said death upon America.
Yep, I understand
It's
that.
North Korea and Iran after 1979. Pre-79, Iran had great relationship with us, great relationship with Israel, great relationship with the world. The Shah didn't trust Israel because where they are politically, but he was still able to do business with them. He was able to do business with France. He was able to do business with Europe. But the moment the IRGC, the founder of IRGC I had on the podcast here 4 months ago, he was right here. We had a 2.5-hour conversation together. Him and Khomeini started IRGC, and we talked about what happened with all the lies and Sinema Rex fire. This is not the same Iran we're talking about. It's a very different Iran.
But you're not calling for a war with Iran.
I don't want no war. No, I don't want people dying. I lived there when war happened. I saw people dying. I lived in Iran for almost 11 years. I'm born October 1878. We left July 15th, 89. So think what era I lived in Iran. In Tehran, by the way, capital.
You mentioned North Korea.
Right.
I took all three delegations to North Korea. The three U.S. delegations I took, all bipartisan. And I went in there, again, to support the president. I never went on a foreign delegation because that's not the role of the Congress to do foreign policy, only to support the president. I led delegations to 104 countries. I went to North Korea, and I went there in support of George Bush in the early 2000s. And with Colin Powell's support, Colin Powell was the Secretary of State, a good man. I wanted him to run for president. He didn't want to do it. He was screwed by Bush because Condi Rice wanted to kick him out so she could take his job in the second 4 years, and she did. I'm aware of that. That's why Colin Powell didn't support George Bush for re-election. I know that for a fact. But anyway, I went to North Korea, and I said, what do you people want? And they said, Congressman, we really don't trust the Chinese. We don't fully trust the Russians. The person I met with was Kim Gae-gwan. He was our lead negotiator.
How many times did you go to North Korea?
I went there 3 times. 3 times. And to Pyongyang. I went there once to Panmunjom to bring back the remains, and I went to Pyongyang. And I said, well, what do you want? They said, we want the respect of the U.S. We don't know how to get the respect of the U.S. I said, well, one of the things you've got to do is you've got to stop terrorism and you've got to stop your nuclear program. And they said, well, we're not really interested in pursuing a nuclear program. This is back in 2003 and 4. So I said, well, what if we came up with a plan that maybe would allow you to have an alternative source of energy? And they said, we'd be interested in that. So with my delegation, again, 3 Democrats, I can name them, and they'll come on your show, and 2 other Republicans. On the back of an envelope, on my first or second trip there, I wrote down 6 or 7 items. It became a 2-part plan to create what I called the peace pipeline.
Is this it?
The peace pipeline? Yeah, that's it. That's
Okay.
the meeting. That's the meeting. So I said, and I met separately with Kim Gae-gwan privately. With the members, they were off. I said, I want to meet with you privately. Let me run something by you because I have to get this approved by Secretary Powell and by the White House. I said, the 6 party nations, China, Russia, South Korea, North Korea, the U.S., what if they all came together and offered you some other way for energy? Let's say the Russian has energy up in the Far East, up around Kamchatka, oil and gas. What if we built pipelines from the Russian Far East that came down from Kamchatka through China, down the rail corridor of North Korea to South Korea? And what if KoGas in South Korea offered to buy that product and sell it to China, to Japan, and the other countries? And China built the pipeline. Would you then be willing to give up your nuclear program? And the North Koreans said, yes. So I wrote up a 2-part, 10-point peace plan. Colin Powell had me speak at the monthly Secretary of State forum that he sponsored as a secretary in front of 200 State Department employees. And he put it on his website. The peace plan was approved by all other 4 nations, 5 nations. I went to Wuhan, China. Wuhan, China, besides being the health problem, their largest manufacturer of pipe is in Wuhan. They had 500,000 employees there. I went to Wuhan and spent a week. I met with the leadership of the pipe company and the party in Wuhan. I said, can you get the party leadership to approve you building pipe for a pipeline system from the Russian Far East down through China and North Korea to South Korea? They said, we'd love it. And yes, our country will support that. I went to KoGas. I'm very tight with the South Koreans. The former defense minister, is a good friend of mine. And I traveled with him to Kazakhstan. He knows me very well. And the president was also a good friend. He held a dinner for me when I left Congress. I said, will KoGas buy the product? We'll buy it for ourselves, and we'll sell what we don't need to China, to Japan? Yes, Congressman. It's a great idea. The Russians, I said, you want to sell the product up there? Absolutely, Congressman. We'll sell all the oil and gas. All the countries supported it. And the plan was that we would not complete and open the pipelines until North Korea shut down the Yongbun reactor. That's their main reactor. Shut it down and allowed for a transparent multinational review of that site to verify that the nuclear program was totally shut down. And then I told them once that's done and once it's verified, then the product will flow through the pipelines and you'll get a tipping fee. For every barrel of product going through the pipeline, you'll get income for your country. And you'll get to use some of the product for energy for your nation so you won't need nuclear power. The North Koreans wanted to do it. The White House didn't want it. I'll tell you how severe it was and how childish it was. You know, we have an annual prayer breakfast in Washington every year, and I used to go to every one of them. And the president speaks. So I was at the time working both Libya and North Korea, had been to both countries. So the Libyan ambassador in Washington was a man named Ojali. I said, Ambassador Ojali, will you come sit at the prayer breakfast with my delegation in front of the president to show that Libya is serious about peace with America? He said, absolutely, Congressman. A month before the prayer breakfast, I get a call from the 2 embassy officials. North Korea had no embassy here. They had a consular office up at the UN. Ambassador Han and Ambassador Park. Ambassador Han called me. He said, Chairman Weldon, you have some kind of a prayer event in Washington once a year. I said, yes, Ambassador. It's the prayer breakfast. He said, Ambassador Park and I would like to come and bring our spouses. I said, you want to come to the prayer breakfast? He said, yes. I said, well, you can't have a press conference there. It's a prayer breakfast. We pray. He said, no, Congressman. We just want to come and show our presence. Well, I said, absolutely, you'll be my guest. I organized the table. It was going to be the ambassador from Libya and his wife, Ambassador Hahn and his wife, Ambassador Park and his wife, right in the front and the center of the National Prayer Breakfast. About 2 weeks before the prayer breakfast, I got a call from Ambassador Hahn. He was very upset. He said, Congressman Weldon, we have to turn down your offer. I said, well, why would you do this to me? You asked me to get the invitation. I get it. I get the table. He said, Congressman, you don't understand. We're not an embassy. For us to travel outside of New York, out of 50 miles, we have to get State Department approval. We applied for the permit, and your State Department turned us down. I hung up the phone, and I called the State Department. And the Congressional Affairs guy, whose name I have in my records, and he'll say this, he'll verify it, before I could even say anything, he said, Mr. Chairman, I know why you're calling, and Chairman Powell supports you. We were called by the White House and told to deny the approval for the 2 embassy leaders from North Korea to come with the prayer breakfast.
What was their fear?
Condoleezza Rice. She didn't want them in the room with the. She didn't want to show that North Korea wanted a peaceful coexistence with America. I'll take a polygraph.
I get it, but what you're saying is that these neocons, they want war.
They want conflict.
Why though? Is it pure profit or is it just constant conflict?
It's Marxism. It's Trotsky. If you look back at their roots, it goes back to Irvin. What's his name? Oh my goodness, I'm having a senior moment.
Senior moment who does 20 pull-ups, by the way.
Well, that's how I get past senior moments. Oh my God! Because anyway, it's a form. The neocons.
Irving Zeitlin?
No. Irving. His son is a big neocon now. He's one of the Crystal. Irving Crystal.
Okay.
Bill
Irving Crystal, Bill's dad, created the neocon movement out of essentially a Trotskyite concept of using a combination. Yeah, there you go. It's a combination of collectivism, concepts of collectivism, and chaos. That's why Stalin had Trotsky killed, because Stalin did not like the idea that some guy was running around there using essentially communism as a method of insinuating chaos. The chaos, they believe, philosophically, will allow for them to gain control. The chaos, they believe, gives them some level of global control. That goes back to Stalin.
That makes sense to me.
Hi, I'm Kurt Weldon, teacher, firefighter, father of 5, family man, who spent 20 years in the Congress after serving as mayor and county chairman of my county in suburban Philadelphia. My intent is to give experiences and information and knowledge about the 104 countries that I led delegations to during my 20 years in the Congress, and all of the work that I did on behalf of America's firefighters and first responders traveling around the country. If you'd like to connect with me, connect on Minect, and I will get back to you.
Hi, I'm retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer. I'm a senior intelligence officer / retired spy with a great deal of information regarding my 30-plus years of operational experience, plus 9/11 issues relating to able danger. I wrote a book, Operation Dark Heart, New York Times bestseller. I'm the National Security Advisor to the Trump 2020 campaign. I'm an elected official in North Carolina as a county commissioner. So reach out to me via Minect. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to give you answers that will help you. Look forward to talking to you.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.